Vocal Atlanta activist Sir Maejor arrested on multiple charges of impersonating police officers. Let's bring you the bothersome truth. So in Black Lives Matter have known about this story for a while because we've been dealing with this issue as far as the things that Sir Maejor has said and the way he portrays himself, and then these allegations. But now we want to give you the news because Fox 5 Atlanta, AJC, and Atlanta Progressive News have been doing stories on this week. So let's give you the facts and then we're going to have an opinion about it, okay? So, Sir Maejor was arrested in June for causing a disturbance outside a Donald Trump appearance in Atlanta. On December 27, 2014, he was arrested and charged by the APD for impersonating a police officer. Police say that Sir Maejor arrested, quote-unquote, a woman at a gas station he was working at as a security guard. He was carrying a Glock, a stun gun, and pepper spray, and identified himself as a member of the Fugitive Task Force. And on January 14th of this year, he gained entrance into the Secretary of State's Corporations Division office and impersonated an FBI agent in the process. Yeah. If you take a look at him, so impersonate a police officer multiple times, and here's the thing, he calls himself the president of Black Lives Matter. Can you believe this?
What a
Greater Atlanta.
What a prestigious title to bestow upon yourself, right? And you have him being documented by Fox 5 even in interviews, because one of the complaints from Black Lives Matter has been that he sort of hijacked the organization, because of course Black Lives Matter unfortunately has refused to acknowledge his participation with the organization because of those kinds of issues that have been brought up in the past. There was even one encounter that he had with the police that resulted in an arrest, which also resulted in a later court date, which he wanted to start a GoFundMe account in order to finance the attorney fees for. And he did so in the name of Black Lives Matter. So he used the Black Lives Matter name in order to start this GoFundMe account in order to finance his own attorney fees and legal fees that he could use in order to fight one of these cases. So it just goes to we're talking about how the media misuses these kinds of situations, either because the media just fails to do their due diligence, where we have these acts who take on the Black Lives Matter name without having any affiliation with the group or the movement whatsoever. And then hold press conferences. He had this one amazing quote. He said, "We stand on the shoulders of those that have paved the way for us to be able to protest in the streets." And yet, in one of the protests at the Donald Trump rally that was here in Georgia, that he attended, he actually ended up pulling out a knife on one of the protesters, which was interesting. And again, this is against one of the fellow protesters that he's supposed to be protesting alongside. He pulls out a knife on that person allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks for itself. He's pretending to be, or saying that he's the leader of Black Lives Matter Greater Atlanta as the president. The organization doesn't have presidents. It's not a movement like that. But he calls himself that. He claims it. He says that God gave him his name. He says that leaders are born and that civil rights leaders have passed the torch on to him. But he's impersonating police officers. I mean, what sense does that make?
Doesn't make any
when
sense.
You're in a movement that's trying to bring accountability to. I can't even say it with a straight face.
You're in a movement that you're trying to bring accountability.
You're in a movement to bring accountability to police, to protest police brutality, and you're dressing up as a police officer.
Yeah.
Think about that. And you're pulling. Like, one of the reasons he was arrested, think about this, is because he tried to pull over an APD sergeant.
Wow.
He impersonated an FBI agent and got into the Secretary of State Corporation Division.
Yeah.
Like he bullied his way in.
Yeah.
Like, is that somebody who stands on the shoulder of giants? Like, that's what it means?
Yeah.
It is ridiculous that people even believe this guy. And the only reason he's even as famous as he is because because it's not even A and B. He's an albino actor who was on American Horror Story.
Yeah.
And so let me just put it this way. That's how he became well known, and he claims to be this leader, but his record does not match what he says that he is.
No.
And we work with people who are in the streets organizing and mobilizing and connecting and talking with leaders and pushing out demands of things that we want to see. But he's not doing that. He's just...
And there are repeated reports about him and his associations with Black Lives Matter members that are a bit disheartening. There's one situation with Dawn O'Neill, for instance, who claims that she was accosted by him at a McDonald's. There are other protesters who I've heard reports from, sources that I don't want to name at the moment because they've chosen to be anonymous.
Yeah, those are personal conversations.
That he has intimidated them or used his, I guess, stature to intimidate them. One even is claiming allegations of rape. But right now, I'm just really confused generally about what it is that he's up to. He's impersonating police officers. He's impersonating agents. He's claiming to be the head of the Black Lives Matter organization when he is clearly not. And at protests, he's doing antics such as pulling knives out on protesters.
That was the Donald Trump
at the Donald Trump rally, right? You know, so those kinds of activities lead one to believe. We were having a conversation with a former SNCC leader, and she was saying one of the things that COINTELPRO agents used to do was they would integrate into organization. Of course, they would be from the FBI, but they would integrate into organizations in order to dismantle them from within, or they would attend these rallies or attend these peaceful protests and make them turn not peaceful, make them turn into violent protests by staging antics like pulling knives out on people or throwing rocks at the police, in order for the optics to show visually for people sitting at home that the organization that they're talking about that's holding the peaceful protest is actually violent and violent rioters and agitators. That's something that they did to the civil rights movement in the 60s. So I think it's important for us to all figure out what the angle is. I feel like we don't have all the information we need. I would love for him to come on the show and so that we can find out, so we can figure this thing out. So that we can hear his side of the story. I want to hear more sides of the story. I feel like there's just so much missing in this that we just don't.
Yes. And the last thing I want to add is when you're listening to this, you're trying to figure out why this matters, is because with Black Lives Matter, you have everybody telling you what we are, except like they're not telling you the truth. They say we're a hate group. We're not. They say we're a terrorist group. We're not. So then you have this individual who's impersonating police officers. Those are the charges. It makes it look like we're an organization that we're not. You know? So that's why this matters to us, and it matters to activists who are on the ground doing the real work. Doing the work so that police can be held accountable, so that people aren't killed in the streets unarmed. That's why this story matters. That's why we're talking about it. And hopefully we can sit down and talk with Sir Maejor so that we can get more into the story. But that's been your dose of Bothersome Truth.
Hope you enjoyed our dose of Bothersome Truth. We are constantly prescribing the medicine of truth. If you have any suggestions or would like to have your truth explored on the show, email us at bothersometruth@gmail.com. The best way to get your next dose is to subscribe, share our truth with your friends and family, and we can save the world together.